there are many states where this is already allowed, medicinal marijuana use. What do doctors really typically most likely prescribe marijuana for? Are there certain conditions? And how do people know what those conditions are?
Well, the main indications for using medicinal cannabis are to decrease nausea and to stimulate appetite. It also can be used for chronic pain. It's particularly good for neuropathic pain, the sort of pins and needles that the opiates aren't very good at treating. It's also a good muscle relaxer. And it's an anti-inflammatory and a free radical scavenger, and it also helps quite a bit with autoimmune disorders, sort of regulating the immune system. So it can be used for a whole host of medical indications and psychiatric indications as well.
You know, it's interesting, and I think the tagline, sort of, when you think about marijuana use, especially here in California, is that doctors may not always be the most scrupulous when it comes to prescribing it. They prescribe it for all sorts of different things. What is your impression? I mean, it's gotten a bad rap in that sense. Is there good record keeping? How diligent do you think many of these doctors are?
Well, I think, there's a spectrum like anything else. I think that there are many doctors who take their responsibilities very seriously, and I think that there are probably a good handful of unscrupulous physicians who know that it's a easy way to make money.
Yeah, as a medication, if you think about medicinal marijuana, does it seem to make a difference how people would actually take this medication, whether they smoke it
yes.
or use it as a vaporizer? What's the difference?
It does make a difference. First of all, I think that if you have any sort of predisposition to lung problems, if you've got diminished pulmonary function, then you would want to either use a vaporizer or eat the cannabis instead of smoking it. The issue with eating it is that you actually create a new drug. THC, which everybody knows is the component in cannabis that makes you feel altered, but is also the medicine. When you eat it, your liver breaks THC down into another component called 11-hydroxy-THC, and that can feel a little bit more disorienting or psychedelic. So typically when you eat pot, it gets you a little bit more altered than when you smoke it. And also, it lasts much longer when you eat it. So if you want to be able to titrate your dose, you're better off smoking or vaporizing than eating it. But, the other thing that's happening a lot now, Sanjay, which is interesting, is that people are juicing the whole plant. And what's good about juicing the whole plant is you don't get high. You get all the medicinal effects from the plant, but you don't become altered. And because it's illegal and so expensive, you really can't juice the whole plant in many other states in the country. But if this were a medicine, you would have that option. So there are ways to get the medicinal benefits of the plant without being altered, and I think that needs to be explored.
There was a recent study, final question, a recent study that talked about marijuana use in young people, and saying if you use it as a young person, it was more likely to have longer-term impact in terms of memory degradation and things like that. Didn't see that so much as in adults. But Dr. Holland,
right.
I mean, what worries you the most about all this? Are there certain concerns?
Yeah, there are definitely concerns. One thing is that, kids in their late teens, early 20s, their brains are really vulnerable and susceptible to particularly delicate time in brain formation. So, one good thing about regulating cannabis is that you would actually potentially have fewer children using. I mean, right now, you ask any kid, and it's pretty easy for them to get pot. Dealers don't card. But if things are regulated, the hope is that it would actually have fewer children using. I mean, you can look at other countries like the Netherlands, where actually they've got much better statistics on, teen drug use than we do.
Right. Well, Dr. Holland, I hope to have you back. We do want to look at some of these studies as well, and hopefully have a longer discussion at some point. Dr. Julie Holland, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.